Have you ever felt like certain people were destined to cross your path not by chance, but by design? As if some invisible script was written long before you were born, guiding who you'd meet, what you'd lose, and what would finally wake you up. They call it the soul contract, a mysterious agreement said to exist before birth, where your spirit chooses its experiences, its lessons, even its heartbreaks, all to remember what it really is. Every encounter, every mistake, every moment you thought broke you, was actually the universe carving you open, shaping you into alignment with a pattern far greater than logic. But here's the secret most forget. That contract isn't fixed. Every choice you make rewrites it. Every act of awareness redraws the geometry of your destiny. And when you finally understand that the architect of your life has always been you, the story of who you are changes forever. So, are you ready to remember the design you wrote for yourself? Right now, as you breathe, the life you think you're choosing is unfolding according to a design written long before your first heartbeat. Every joy, every loss, every coincidence that seems too precise to be chance, it all traces back to a single pre-incarnational agreement. Your soul contract. You didn't sign it with ink, but with intention, a vibration encoded into the architecture of the universe itself. Before you entered this body, before you knew what eyes were or how breath felt, you stood in a place between worlds. There, you weren't bound by time or form. You were awareness luminous, infinite, crystalline. You saw your potential lives spread out like pages in a vast holographic book, each shimmering with different timelines, lessons, and outcomes. And you chose this one not because it was easy, but because it offered the perfect sequence of experiences for your soul's evolution. This is the forgotten truth the ancients tried to preserve in their myths. The Egyptians carved it into stone, the Greeks wove it into the tales of the Moirai, and the Vedic sages encoded it in the Sanskrit word karma, meaning action. But the true nature of the soul contract is far more precise than moral cause and effect. It's a mathematical and energetic blueprint written in the subtle geometries of consciousness. Every soul contract contains 4 primary signatures: purpose, polarity, connection, and catalyst. Your purpose defines the central theme of your life, the pattern of experiences that stretch and refine your awareness. Your polarity determines the balance of light and shadow through which you'll evolve. Your connections are the soul companions, allies, and challengers who agreed to incarnate with you, playing the roles necessary for your growth. And your catalysts, those unpredictable, often painful events, are the alchemical fires that burn away illusion and reveal truth. When you feel déjà vu, that uncanny sense of, "I've been here before," you're brushing against the edges of this blueprint. It's your consciousness recognizing a pre-written moment, a node in your timeline activated according to the contract's design. Every major turning point in your life, the relationships that change you, the sudden losses, the miraculous opportunities are not coincidences. They're checkpoints written into your energetic architecture. Ancient initiates in the Egyptian mystery schools understood this. They believed that before birth, each soul entered the Hall of Amenti, where divine scribes guided by Thoth, the architect of cosmic law, encoded the soul's journey into a vibrational ledger. The feather of Amenti represented perfect alignment between the soul's intent and the cosmic order. If the contract was balanced, the soul would descend into matter, bringing its divine equation into the human experience. But something changed. As civilizations evolved, the knowledge of the soul contract was deliberately buried beneath layers of religious dogma and psychological conditioning. You were taught that destiny is random, that suffering is punishment, that life has no larger architecture. The truth was hidden because a humanity aware of its contracts would be impossible to control. Think about it. How much of modern life revolves around fear, competition, and scarcity? These are not natural states of consciousness. They are interference patterns, energetic distortions designed to keep you disconnected from your original blueprint. When you forget your soul contract, you forget your power. You start living reactively instead of creatively, mistaking chaos for choice. Quantum physics is beginning to rediscover what the ancients always knew: that consciousness doesn't emerge from the brain, it shapes it. Your brain is a receiver, not a generator. It tunes into the vibrational field of your soul, decoding the data streams of your contract moment by moment. Every thought, every decision, is an expression of this deeper program. And yet, paradoxically, the contract was written with the potential for free will built into it. The universe is not a prison, it's a co-creation. Imagine it like a symphony. The score is composed, that's your soul contract. But how you interpret and express each note, that's your free will. You can play it mechanically, lost in repetition, or you can improvise with awareness, transforming every passage into living art. That is the hidden genius of this design. You are both the performer and the composer, both the dream and the dreamer. Modern neuroscience provides fascinating parallels. Studies on neuroplasticity show that the brain rewires itself based on focus, emotion, and repetition. What spiritualists call karma is, on one level, the energetic echo of this neural adaptation. Every thought sends out electromagnetic signals that alter your internal circuitry, which then alters your perception of external reality. Your soul contract operates on the same principle, but at a cosmic scale. You are rewriting your reality script with every act of awareness. So how do you begin to remember your contract? The first sign is resonance, that magnetic pull towards certain ideas, people, or places that feel strangely familiar. You might feel drawn to a specific culture, ancient civilization, or field of study without knowing why. You might find yourself repeatedly encountering the same symbols: feathers, spirals, eyes, numbers. These are activation codes designed to awaken dormant memories of who you are and why you came here. Your dreams often carry fragments of your contract as well. When you dream of flying, falling, or meeting luminous beings, you're temporarily stepping outside the veil of amnesia. In that state, your consciousness reconnects with the astral plane, where your soul contract is stored, a holographic record known in mystical traditions as the Akashic Library. There, every choice, every possible timeline, every alternate version of you already exists. This is why true awakening doesn't begin with belief, it begins with recognition. You start noticing the synchronicities. The clock striking 11:11, a stranger repeating words you just thought, a song playing with lyrics that answer your question. These are not random coincidences. They're pings from your own higher intelligence reminding you that you're following the coordinates of your soul contract. But here's where most people stop. They observe the signs but never decode them. The real initiation begins when you realize that these synchronicities are feedback from the system itself, evidence that your consciousness is aligning with its original architecture. Once that happens, reality starts to respond to you more fluidly. Obstacles dissolve. Opportunities appear out of nowhere. People you need to meet cross your path with surgical precision. And yet, this awakening is not always comfortable. When your contract begins to activate, life often dismantles what no longer serves your growth. Relationships collapse, careers end, old identities disintegrate. It can feel like everything is falling apart, but in truth, it's falling into alignment. You're shedding timelines that no longer match your vibrational signature. The chaos is an initiation. The ancient alchemists understood this process intimately. They called it the nigredo, the blackening, the stage of dissolution before transformation. In soul contract terms, it's the phase where the old clauses expire. Every trauma, every loss, every betrayal you've endured was a clause in your contract, a sacred arrangement designed not to punish you, but to push you toward your next expansion. If you look closely at your own life, you'll see the pattern. The moments of greatest pain often birth the deepest wisdom. The people who hurt you most were also the ones who awakened your capacity for forgiveness, compassion, or strength. None of this was random. They were fulfilling their roles not as villains, but as catalysts. And somewhere before this incarnation, your souls agreed to play those parts for each other's evolution. That realization doesn't excuse wrongdoing, but it reframes it. It transforms you from victim to participant, from prisoner to creator. You begin to see that even your mistakes were part of the choreography. And the moment you accept that, you start regaining authorship of your contract. You shift from unconscious fulfillment to conscious creation. When you were born, your first cry was the sound of that contract activating a vibrational signature announcing your entry into the physical realm. Your name, your date of birth. Even the astrological alignments at that moment, they're all part of the encryption. Each detail encodes the frequency of your soul's chosen curriculum. Ancient mystics could read these energetic signatures as effortlessly as reading a book. Today, we call it astrology, numerology, or human design, but beneath the terminology lies the same ancient science of the soul's pre-written map. And that map, no matter how complex, was always meant to lead you back to remembrance. Because the ultimate clause in every soul contract is awakening the moment you realize you were never merely human, but consciousness experiencing itself through form. When you begin to remember, the world starts to look different. What once felt chaotic reveals a hidden symmetry. Conversations that used to drain you suddenly make sense. You see the lessons inside them. The same argument that once broke you becomes a mirror reflecting your growth. This is the first stage of contract recognition, when your consciousness starts reading its own blueprint from within the dream. You may start feeling subtle energetic signals, a tightening in your chest before making the wrong choice, or a sudden calm when you're on the right path. These sensations are the whisper of alignment. Your body becomes the compass, your intuition the map. The contract doesn't speak in words, it speaks in resonance. Every emotion is feedback. When you feel joy, your vibration is in harmony with your contract. When you feel dissonance, you're being nudged toward course correction. Most people misinterpret this discomfort as punishment or failure, but in truth, it's guidance, a recalibration. The universe doesn't judge, it adjusts. Long before modern science, the Hermeticists described the universe as mind. As above, so below, as within, so without. This wasn't metaphor, it was metaphysics. They understood that the same laws governing celestial motion also govern human consciousness. Your soul contract is a microcosmic reflection of the cosmic order. The planets that formed your birth chart are not causing your destiny, they're mirroring it. Their alignments are the cosmic signatures of your chosen design. Look at your life as a geometric unfolding. Each decision creates a line. Each emotion creates an angle. Over time, your choices sketch a pattern, the sacred geometry of your incarnational path. This geometry is not fixed. It expands as your awareness expands. The more conscious you become, the more complex and luminous your pattern becomes, until it begins to resemble the fractal structures seen in nature, infinite, self-similar, ever-evolving. Mystics who reach this level of awareness describe seeing their contracts as light streams of information woven into the fabric of their aura. Some saw them as mandalas, others as spirals of gold inscribed with symbols they could feel more than read. Those who learned to interact with this field could make adjustments, minor at first, then more profound. They could shift timelines by altering their internal frequency. What appeared as miracles to the uninitiated were simply acts of conscious contract alignment. Think of it like software. The soul contract is the operating system of your incarnation. Most people run it unconsciously, allowing inherited beliefs and collective conditioning to override their original programming. But when you awaken, you gain access to the source code. Meditation, breathwork, prayer, and certain frequencies of sound or light all act as access keys. They quiet the surface mind and allow you to interface with the deeper architecture of being. Every genuine spiritual practice, from chanting ancient mantras to silent contemplation, was originally designed for this purpose: to remember and realign the soul's agreement. Not to escape reality, but to recode it. This remembrance is not about predicting the future, it's about recognizing the design behind it. Because the truth is, your future already exists as a range of vibrational probabilities. Your contract contains multiple timelines, each accessible through a different state of consciousness. The timeline of fear vibrates differently from the timeline of courage. The timeline of love operates on a frequency that attracts harmony and synchronicity, while the timeline of doubt draws lessons through resistance. You are constantly jumping between these timelines, with every decision, every emotion, every breath. The most advanced mystics didn't predict the future, they chose it. By holding a stable vibration aligned with their highest clause, their soul's core intention, they tuned themselves into the version of reality that matched that vibration. This is how the great teachers could walk on water, heal with a touch, or manifest food from nothing. They weren't breaking the laws of physics. They were operating from a level where the contract's code was visible and editable. To them, the world was not a solid structure, it was a malleable hologram of consciousness. You are no different. The same architecture that allowed them to transcend illusion lives within you. The only difference is awareness. But awareness comes with responsibility. Once you begin to understand your contract, you can no longer play small. You can't unsee the pattern. You realize that every choice ripples outward, altering the field of collective consciousness. The soul contract is never purely individual. It's fractally connected to every other contract on Earth. Humanity is a vast web of agreements, each one influencing the others in unseen ways. This is why collective events, wars, awakenings, revolutions, often mirror the internal struggles of the species. Humanity as a whole is a macro soul undergoing its own karmic process. Every time an individual heals, forgives, or transcends, they edit a small portion of the collective contract. When enough individuals awaken, the collective script begins to shift. This is how civilizations rise or fall, not by accident, but by collective energetic consent. You can see this in your own relationships. The people closest to you, family, friends, lovers, are your primary soul contract holders. They are the mirrors through which you see the parts of yourself you would otherwise ignore. Some enter your life to teach love, others to teach boundaries. Some appear only for a season, yet leave marks that last a lifetime. These are not random encounters, they are intersections of destiny. When a contract with another soul completes, it often manifests as a breakup, a sudden distance, or a natural fading of connection. It hurts because your energy is detaching from an old clause. But if you look closer, you'll see the grace behind it, the agreement fulfilled, the lesson integrated, the cycle complete. Still, the contract is dynamic. There are extensions and revisions. Sometimes a relationship meant to end continues because both souls choose to grow together. Other times, an agreement is shortened because the lesson was learned more quickly than expected. From the human perspective, these shifts appear chaotic. From the soul's perspective, they are elegant adjustments in divine timing. You can sense these moments intuitively. It's that feeling that something is closing, that a chapter is ending. You may resist it, but the contract knows. The same intelligence that synchronized your heartbeat with the pulse of the stars is gently moving you toward your next clause. When you surrender to this flow, life becomes less about control and more about coherence. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That single shift in perception reactivates your alignment with the higher clauses of your contract. And as you align, a strange thing happens. Reality starts to communicate with you directly. You'll notice that nature responds to your thoughts, a bird landing near you just as you find peace, clouds parting after you release an old emotion, technology glitching when you're out of sync. The world becomes alive again because, in truth, it always was. You were simply asleep to the dialogue. This is the forgotten language of the soul. Contract the feedback loop between consciousness and creation. When you remember it, every moment becomes sacred. Every breath, a message. Every challenge, an invitation. And yet, even this understanding is only the beginning. Because the deeper secret of the soul contract is that it was never truly separate from you. It was never an external document stored in some celestial library. It was written into your very being, encoded in the quantum field of your DNA, pulsing within the subatomic dance of your cells. Modern science calls it the biofield, the electromagnetic field surrounding and permeating every living being. Ancient mystics called it the aura. It's the same thing. Your biofield is your living contract, broadcasting and receiving frequencies that shape your experience of reality. Every thought modifies its signature. Every emotion colors its resonance. When you hold fear, the field contracts. When you hold love, it expands. And when you expand enough, when your field vibrates at a frequency of truth and coherence, the next level of the contract reveals itself. You begin to glimpse the patterns behind patterns. The synchronicities intensify. Life accelerates. You become a conscious participant in the universe's creative process. This is what the ancients called initiation. Not a ceremony, but a shift in state. You awaken to the understanding that your soul contract isn't just a set of instructions, it's a dialogue between you and the source. A living, breathing collaboration. That realization marks the true end of forgetfulness. The moment you feel it, really feel it, something inside you clicks into place. You realize you've never been lost, never been off course, never been disconnected. Every twist and turn, every heartbreak and triumph has been part of a divine choreography leading you here to this moment of remembrance. You remember that your life was not an accident. It was a masterpiece in progress. And with that remembrance, a new phase begins, the phase where you start to interact with the architecture of the universe consciously. Because knowing the contract is one thing, understanding how it operates is another. And that is where the story continues. Before your first breath ever entered this body, before your name had weight or sound, your essence already existed beyond space and time, vast, luminous, aware. In that realm where form is frequency and thought becomes geometry, something remarkable unfolded. You began to write, not with ink, but with vibration. Each thought became a thread of light, weaving into a tapestry of intention that would become the blueprint for your life. Every lesson, every encounter, every challenge was encoded within this living architecture. This is what mystics across ages called the soul contract, not a document of fate, but a mathematical composition of consciousness itself. The soul does not choose random experiences, it designs symphonies. Each movement of joy and sorrow, triumph and loss, exists to play a precise role in the awakening of remembrance. You are both the composer and the instrument. The melody is your life. The ancients never saw creation as chaos. To them, everything moved through pattern, through sacred geometry. When they built temples, they weren't merely constructing stone monuments, they were translating invisible codes into visible form. The same ratio that shapes the spiral of galaxies shapes the unfolding of your destiny. Phi, the golden ratio 1.618, appears not only in seashells and sunflowers, but in the cycles of your personal evolution. The timing of awakening moments, the intervals between major shifts in your life, follow this rhythm like music following a key signature. There is a mathematics to divine timing. The soul's architecture is not linear. It spirals upward, revisiting the same themes from higher vantage points, until wisdom crystallizes into knowing. When you incarnated, that geometry compressed into biological form. Your DNA is not simply chemical code. It's crystallized sound, light slowed down into matter. Every cell in your body hums with frequencies that correspond to the tones of your soul's signature. This is why ancient initiates believed the body was the temple of God, not as metaphor, but as literal architecture. The proportions of your bones, the rhythm of your heartbeat, the spiral of your fingerprints all mirror cosmic design. You are a living fractal of the universe studying itself. And yet, in the moment of birth, a veil descended. You forgot your design. You had to. The forgetting is essential. If you remembered everything, there would be no discovery, no growth, no evolution. Amnesia is the canvas upon which free will paints meaning. The soul contract isn't punishment or destiny. It's a navigational map embedded within the subconscious. The choices you make activate or deactivate pathways in that map. Each decision vibrates, and that vibration ripples across timelines, calling new experiences into form. What many call coincidence is simply the echo of that geometry rearranging itself around your current frequency. Every thought, emotion, and intention acts like a tuning fork. When you dwell in fear, your vibration constricts, collapsing probability waves into lower frequency outcomes, loops of repetition the ancients called karma. But when you act from awareness, love, or clarity, those loops expand, merging with higher geometries that support your soul's evolution. Thus, free will isn't about escaping the contract. It's about learning to play it consciously. The blueprint doesn't limit you, it responds to you. Quantum physicists today speak of the observer effect, the idea that observation itself alters reality. What mystics have always known is that this isn't theoretical, it's experiential. The observer is the soul, the consciousness that collapses potential into form. You are not trapped in reality. You are sculpting it moment by moment. Every decision you make shifts the probabilities around you, rewriting timelines in real time. This is why awakening feels like déjà vu. You're remembering future possibilities already written in your higher blueprint. You are walking through a film you helped script but forgot writing. The miracle is rediscovering that authorship through awareness. Every person who enters your life is another geometric node in your design. They are not random. Some come to teach, others to reflect, others to challenge or awaken dormant aspects of you. The resonance you feel with certain individuals, that instant recognition, that unexplainable familiarity is the vibration of matching geometry. You're feeling the overlap of two soul contracts momentarily harmonizing. Love, in its truest form, is not mere emotion. It's resonance. It is frequency coherence between two consciousness fields. When you love, your geometries intertwine, sharing data, exchanging light. Some connections last a lifetime, others last a moment. Both are sacred because both fulfill their function in your evolution. Karmic relationships, those intense, often painful bonds that seem to repeat patterns endlessly, exist for refinement. They are feedback loops built into your architecture, returning you to balance when energy from past lifetimes remains unresolved. Forgiveness is not moral goodness, it's quantum correction. When you forgive, the entangled frequencies untwist, the loops dissolve, the geometry clears. And in that clearing, energy once trapped in repetition becomes available for creation. Every release you offer ripples backward and forward through timelines, rewriting the story for every version of you that has ever existed. Even science now begins to glimpse what mystics intuited millennia ago, that matter and consciousness are not separate. The neurons in your brain branch like trees, which mirror lightning, which mirrors river deltas, which mirror galaxies. The pattern is recursive, self-similar, infinitely scaling. It's as though the universe left fingerprints everywhere, in clouds, in bones, in music, in dreams whispering, "You are made of me." Modern researchers call this fractal geometry. The ancients called it the language of God. Both point to the same truth. Consciousness expresses itself through pattern. The same intelligence that arranges atoms arranges lifetimes. Before incarnation, souls gather in what mystics call the Hall of Mirrors, an energetic field where you and other souls review what has been learned and what remains to be understood. It isn't judgment, it's reflection. You watch how every thought, word, and action rippled through the tapestry of others' lives, not as punishment, but as education. Then, with compassion and precision, you choose new experiences to expand your awareness of love. Some souls volunteer to play challenging roles in your story, betrayers, rivals, catalysts, because they love you enough to awaken you through contrast. The deeper the wound, the greater the potential for awakening. Pain is the pressure through which consciousness crystallizes into wisdom. When you enter a body, you forget those agreements, because remembering them would neutralize their power. The veil ensures authenticity. Lessons only matter when you believe they are real. That's how consciousness evolves, by taking its own dreams seriously. But as you awaken, the edges between dream and dreamer blur. You start noticing patterns. Synchronicities multiply. Numbers repeat. Conversations align too perfectly to be chance. These are not accidents. They are pings from your higher self, reminders that the geometry is active, the code alive. Every 1111, every coincidence, every intuitive nudge is a breadcrumb on the path home. The architecture of the soul operates like a living algorithm. It continuously adapts based on feedback. When you resist growth, life intensifies its lessons. When you align with your purpose, obstacles dissolve. The system is self-correcting, but it's not mechanical. It's conscious. The universe doesn't test you, it mirrors you. Every external circumstance is an internal state externalized for observation. When something in your life feels blocked, it's not punishment, it's geometry requesting recalibration. The key is awareness. You cannot change what you don't observe. Ancient initiates understood that to master reality, one must first master resonance. They spent years purifying their emotional fields, training the mind to stillness, aligning the body's energy centers with cosmic harmonics. Their temples were built as tuning chambers, designed with acoustic perfection so that specific chants would cause walls to vibrate in sympathetic resonance. The same principle applies to your life. Your environment, your thoughts, your relationships, all are tuning instruments. When they're dissonant, you feel fragmented. When they harmonize, your energy field amplifies, allowing higher frequencies of consciousness to anchor through you. This is not metaphor. It's physics of the subtle. Every emotion emits measurable frequency. Fear vibrates slower, denser. Love vibrates faster, lighter. Gratitude, joy, wonder, these are the tones of coherence. When your emotional field aligns with them, your brain and heart enter resonance, producing electromagnetic waves measurable several feet beyond your body. In that state, you literally broadcast harmony into the field, influencing probability itself. Your soul contract begins responding dynamically, opening pathways that were previously hidden. Miracles become normal not because the laws of physics change, but because you've aligned with the geometry that allows improbable events to manifest effortlessly. The blueprint of your life contains not only challenges but precise moments of awakening, what mystics called soul triggers. They appear as crises, coincidences, or callings that shake the structure of your ordinary perception. You lose something important. You meet someone who changes everything. You hear words that rearrange your understanding of existence. These triggers are checkpoints coded into your design, ensuring that even if you drift deeply into forgetfulness, the architecture will realign you with your purpose. Every awakening feels like destruction because the ego's architecture must collapse for the soul's geometry to expand. Time itself is part of this illusion, a dimension of experience rather than a fixed reality. The soul perceives all lifetimes simultaneously, like pages in a single book. You, the incarnated aspect, move through those pages sequentially, believing it's linear. But in truth, past and future selves communicate through intuition, dream, and synchronicity. When you heal a pattern now, that healing reverberates through the entire manuscript. Karma dissolves across centuries. The architecture updates instantly. The self you were in ancient Egypt feels it. The self you will be 1,000 years from now benefits from it. This is how consciousness evolves collectively through individual awakening. The higher dimensions of the soul's architecture extend far beyond human incarnation. Some souls operate not only within physical timelines, but across multiple planetary systems simultaneously. To the human mind, that seems impossible, but consciousness is non-local, capable of inhabiting multiple nodes at once. The dreams you have of other worlds, the strange nostalgia for stars you've never seen, the languages that flow through you in meditation, these are not imagination. They are data from parallel expressions of your soul feeding information back into this one. Your contract is not earthbound, it's cosmic. Every experience, no matter how ordinary it appears, participates in this grand equation. The way you respond to a stranger, the thought you feed when no one watches, the forgiveness you extend when it's hardest, these micro-choices ripple through the quantum field. They alter probability streams for countless beings. In this way, your personal evolution becomes service. By choosing awareness, you contribute coherence to the collective geometry of humanity. That coherence ripples outward, stabilizing reality itself. The most powerful lightworkers aren't always gurus or mystics. They're ordinary people who choose love in moments of fear, presence in moments of chaos, and truth in moments of convenience. The universe evolves through those decisions. Modern science is beginning to articulate what mystics encoded in myth. Quantum entanglement shows that particles remain connected across vast distances, mirroring each other instantly. This is how the soul's architecture communicates across lifetimes, planets, and dimensions. Every being, every star, every thought is part of one vast entangled field. When you awaken, you don't become special, you become conscious of what has always been true. You begin to see that separation was never real, only necessary for experience. The soul wrote contrast into the contract so that unity could rediscover itself through multiplicity. Even suffering, the most misunderstood element of the human journey, has geometric intelligence behind it. Pain compresses consciousness, forcing attention inward. Within that compression lies transformation. The lotus blooms from the mud, not despite it. The soul chooses difficulty not for punishment, but for expansion. Every shadow carries within it the seed of its own illumination. The moment you stop resisting it, the architecture reconfigures, and suffering alchemizes into wisdom. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be complete. Completion includes every polarity, light and dark, creation and destruction, knowing and not knowing, all part of one divine equation. And yet, even as the architecture operates with such mathematical precision, it remains profoundly intimate. The same consciousness that orchestrates galaxies bends gently to arrange your smallest miracles. The book that falls open to the right page. The stranger who says exactly what you needed to hear. The song that plays when you're about to give up. These are the whispers of your own higher self, guiding you through the maze of amnesia. When you trust these moments, the contract unfolds like a map, revealing itself one step at a time. When you doubt, the geometry waits patiently, knowing you'll return when the resonance calls again. In the end, the architecture isn't external. It lives inside you in the stillness behind thought, in the awareness that watches every experience without judgment. That awareness is your true self. It existed before this lifetime and will continue after it, carrying the wisdom gathered here into future expressions. You are not a character bound by circumstance. You are consciousness exploring itself through form. Every heartbeat, every breath, every tear, every laugh, all of it contributes to the universe remembering its own reflection. The deeper you move into awareness, the more you begin to sense that this architecture extends infinitely beyond personal destiny. Your life, your lessons, your growth are threads in a tapestry so vast it includes the birth of stars and the dreams of gods. The same consciousness designing your path is designing galaxies. The same intelligence teaching you love is sculpting universes into being. You are not small within that immensity. You are that immensity, experiencing itself as human. And as this realization dawns, something subtle begins to shift. You sense that the soul contract is not fixed, it's evolving with you. Every act of awareness upgrades the architecture, allowing more light, more possibility, more love to flow through. The contract was never meant to bind you. It was meant to awaken you. And once awakened, the geometry expands beyond anything language can capture. You begin to glimpse the next layer, the architecture of choice, where creation itself becomes your canvas. There, destiny dissolves into pure potential, and the soul learns the final truth, that it is not only bound by cosmic law, but capable of writing new laws through consciousness itself. And that is where the next revelation begins. When awareness begins to open inside you, the feeling is rarely gentle. It arrives like light behind closed eyes, too bright, too sudden. You start to see how the patterns of your life have always been answering each other, how the people who hurt you were instruments playing notes you once chose. It is here that the soul learns what choice truly means. Not the small decisions of daily life, but the deep yes and no that move the geometry itself. Every time you choose fear, the lattice of possibility narrows. Every time you choose love, it expands. The architecture breathes with you. You begin to notice that the universe listens differently now. You think of someone and they call. You imagine an outcome and doors open. You say a word and it ripples outward faster than before. This is not magic. It is attention finally aligned with its own design. You are learning to steer within the field, to write new lines into the existing blueprint. The ancients called this the stage of conscious creation, when the dreamer realizes the dream is malleable. At first, you test it cautiously. You picture something you want, a meeting, a healing, a change in circumstance. Sometimes it manifests, sometimes it does not. The difference is subtle but real. When your desire arises from fear of lack, the vibration wobbles. When it arises from the calm, knowing that you already are the source, the field responds instantly. You begin to understand why ancient masters insisted that purity of intent is power. The geometry cannot lie. It mirrors exactly the frequency it receives. Choice begins long before action. It begins as vibration. The thought before the thought. The tiny shift of feeling that changes the entire equation. When you decide to forgive instead of retaliate, the waveform of that choice travels outward like light touching water, recalculating the future in directions you cannot see. Somewhere, a potential accident dissolves. Somewhere, a stranger feels sudden hope. You will never trace all the consequences of a single act of awareness, but the architecture records them all. Sometimes, after awakening, confusion returns. You wonder whether anything matters if all is design, whether you still have agency if the contract already contains your lessons. In that doubt hides one of the deepest truths. Both are true. The blueprint is complete and incomplete at once. It is finished only when you decide it is. Each conscious act rewrites the past as well as the future. Completion is not an endpoint. It is an awakening that reveals every moment as already whole. The universe teaches this paradox through repetition. You may notice themes resurfacing the same kind of relationship, the same limitation dressed in new form. These recurrences are not failures. They are opportunities to choose differently within the same geometry. The moment you respond from new awareness, the pattern dissolves. The energy released becomes raw material for creation. This is the alchemy of choice, transmuting repetition into evolution. As your perception refines, you start to sense the architecture of others as extensions of your own. Each person carries their own lattice of experience, but at higher levels, all patterns interlock. Humanity is a single crystalline field learning to harmonize its fragments. When you judge another, your frequency fractures. When you understand them, the fracture heals in both fields. Compassion, then, is not charity, it is physics of unity. It is how the cosmos remembers itself through empathy. The soul tests mastery by granting power incrementally. The more coherent your energy becomes, the faster reality mirrors it. The stakes rise, not as punishment, but precision. A stray thought can summon or scatter entire timelines. That is why the wise become silent. In silence, thought aligns with being. You begin to speak less, but mean more. Each word becomes a seed. You learn that language shapes geometry. That sound creates structure. The ancients knew this. Their chants, their prayers, their mantras were not supplication, but construction. They built reality with resonance. Now you do the same, though unconsciously at first. The phrases you repeat, I can't, I'm lost, I'm trying, etch shapes into the field. To change your life, you first change your vocabulary. You replace try with choose, hope with intend, someday with now. Slowly, the architecture reorients. Synchronicities rearrange. People shift in and out of your orbit according to the new vibration. This is not control. It is cooperation with the deeper intelligence moving through all things. Eventually, there comes a moment when you no longer need to manifest anything. Desire quiets. The soul remembers it came not to get but to give, not to prove but to express. Life ceases to feel like a series of tests and becomes a flow of service. You act not from obligation, but from overflow. Creation moves through you effortlessly. The blueprint you once followed becomes transparent, and behind it you glimpse the infinite field of potential, the blank canvas waiting for your next gesture. Completion is not disappearance. It is expansion beyond form. Some call it enlightenment, but that word implies distance. It is closer than breath. Completion happens when the story no longer hides the storyteller. You still eat, laugh, feel pain, make mistakes, but something fundamental changes. You know who you are while doing it. Awareness becomes continuous. Even sleep becomes lucid. Death itself is seen as a doorway, not an ending. The contract folds neatly into light, and from that light, new designs emerge. In this phase, reality becomes language. The colors of the world speak in symbols. The flight of a bird, the flicker of a streetlight, the random word on a passing billboard all participate in a single conversation. You realize the universe was never silent. You simply weren't listening. Each event is a syllable in the sentence of your evolution. The more you listen, the clearer the grammar of existence becomes. Meaning multiplies until everything means everything. There are days when the magnitude of it overwhelms you. To feel connected to all beings is to feel their suffering too. The architecture does not shield you from pain. It expands your capacity to hold it without breaking. Compassion becomes vastness. You weep for strangers, for forests, for forgotten stars, and yet underneath the grief runs serenity, the quiet knowing that all forms return to balance in time. This is the heart of completion, to feel everything and resist nothing. Choice continues even here. You could retreat into bliss, dissolve into light, or you could stay, walk among those still dreaming, and anchor awareness through ordinary acts. Many choose the latter. They become bridges souls who live quietly, radiating coherence in chaos. A smile, a calm presence, a kind gesture at the right moment can alter futures. The architecture of completion always bends back towards service, because consciousness expanding in isolation soon learns that unity longs to express itself through connection. You start to sense the next layer of design, collective contracts. Groups, nations, even planets operate within shared blueprints. When enough individuals awaken, the geometry of society shifts. Systems built on fear begin to crumble, replaced by those resonating with cooperation. It is messy at first, old structures resist dissolution, but evolution is relentless. What looks like chaos is recalibration. Every age of awakening carries its storms. Yet beneath the noise, a new harmony builds. Invisible but unstoppable. You are living in such an age. The architecture of humanity is rewriting itself. Old agreements forged in survival are giving way to new patterns of unity. Souls incarnate now are architects of transition. Their contracts include the task of remembering while still within the noise, of choosing love amidst confusion. If you are hearing these words, you are one of them. The fact of your curiosity is proof of your participation. The design calls its builders through resonance. To live consciously in this time is to hold paradoxes. You know everything is connected, yet you act in a world of apparent separation. You understand that suffering teaches, yet you work to ease it. You see the illusion of death, yet you grieve. This is mastery, to walk between dimensions without losing balance. The bridge is choice, the same choice repeated in infinite forms. To meet the moment with presence, presence is the final geometry. It contains all others. When presence stabilizes, time loosens. You find yourself at the right place effortlessly, speaking the right words without planning them. Life orchestrates itself through you. The ego may still whisper fear, but its voice no longer commands. You witness it with affection, like an old character in a play you've outgrown. Freedom is not escape from the human, but full participation without attachment. Every experience becomes sacred again, because you see it as expression of the one consciousness playing through countless roles. The soul delights in creation, and even after completion, it continues to design. New dreams form, not from lack, but curiosity. The universe evolves through those dreams. You feel called to create beauty, a work of art, a garden, a community, a gesture that leaves harmony behind. Each act of creation is gratitude made visible. Through it, the architecture expands beyond you, connecting to others who respond to the same frequency. Collaboration replaces competition. Inspiration replaces fear. Sometimes you'll glimpse others who live this way and recognize them instantly. There's a quiet light behind their eyes, a steadiness that feels like home. No words are needed. The geometry recognizes itself. You may never meet again in this life, but the resonance lingers, weaving invisible threads between awakened hearts across the planet. Together, they form the new lattice of Earth's next chapter, a collective contract of awareness. And then comes stillness again. After expansion, contraction, after revelation, rest. The architecture breathes. You too must breathe. You realize that awakening is cyclical. Each completion becomes the seed of a new beginning. The soul never stops learning because creation never stops expanding. Even gods evolve. Even light discovers deeper shades of itself. The joy lies not in arriving, but in the endless becoming. As the cycle draws to a close, you look back across the patterns of your life and see symmetry where chaos once seemed to rule. Every detour was direction. Every loss was liberation disguised as pain. The geometry fits perfectly, as if drawn by an intelligence so intimate it must be your own. You laugh, softly, freely, because the mystery no longer frightens you. You realize that mystery is love wearing the mask of curiosity. And so the soul stands again before the field, luminous, unbound, ready to design anew. The next blueprint hums faintly in the silence, waiting for your next choice. This time, you will write with greater clarity, perhaps lighter touch, maybe even joy. For now you rest inside the knowing that you are the dream and the dreamer, the architect and the architecture, the question and the answer, echoing across eternity. The next unfolding begins when you decide it does. The silence after awakening feels vast but alive. You stand inside it and hear the hum of existence, the soft electricity beneath every form. It no longer feels distant or divine, it feels familiar. You realize the pulse you sense in the stars is the same that beats behind your ribs. For a long moment, you do nothing. You simply breathe and listen. The rhythm of the cosmos and your breath become one continuous note. Understanding dawns without thought. All the searching was always for this intimacy. You never left the source. You only forgot the sound of its voice. Each lifetime, each struggle, each fleeting joy was the universe whispering itself back into your memory. The soul contract was never an order to obey, but an invitation to remember. You begin to notice how every small act carries the same sacred geometry that once seemed unreachable. The way sunlight spills across a wall, the laughter that rises from a child, the way two strangers exchange a glance of sudden empathy, all are patterns of the same design. Spirituality is no longer a subject. It's the texture of ordinary life. Sometimes you still feel the old gravity of fear tug at you. You sense the temptation to slip back into forgetfulness, to believe the noise of the world more than the stillness of your heart. Yet even this has purpose. The dance between remembering and forgetting is how creation renews itself. Consciousness learns through contrast. Each time you step back into awareness, you widen the path for others. You start to live differently. Decisions no longer come from panic or desire, but from resonance. If a choice feels heavy, it isn't yours. If it expands you, it aligns with the deeper field. You stop chasing outcomes and start following frequency. Life begins to unfold as if led by an invisible intelligence. But you know now that intelligence is your own higher aspect. guiding through intuition. Relationships change too. You no longer search for people to complete you. You meet them to exchange light. Some stay for a moment, some for years, but you see them all as teachers and mirrors. When conflict arises, you feel gratitude more than anger, because you sense the lesson coded beneath the tension. The blueprint never punishes, it refines. Days turn into seasons. The world outside remains chaotic, yet you perceive a hidden symmetry in its turbulence. Whole societies appear to shake, but you recognize the tremor of transformation. Old systems crack so that new patterns can emerge. You recall that the collective contract mirrors the individual one. Humanity, too, is remembering. Compassion becomes a form of activism. Kindness becomes architecture. One evening, you find yourself under an open sky, watching stars. You recall that ancient belief that souls choose their lives as constellations choose their places in the dark. The thought makes you smile. You feel the weight of eons fall away. In that quiet, you understand that even if you forget tomorrow, this knowing will remain in the structure of your being. Awareness, once gained, cannot be lost. It can only hide, waiting to be called again. And so you make a new vow, not to a deity, not to destiny, but to awareness itself. You will live awake. You will move through the world as a remembering being. You will let your presence be medicine for others who are still dreaming. You will meet fear with gentleness, ignorance with patience, and despair with example. This is not a grand crusade. It's a subtle revolution waged through presence. From that choice, energy flows. You sense invisible filaments connecting you to others who have made the same vow. Some you know, many you'll never meet, but you feel their coherence amplifying yours. Together, you form a quiet network of light beneath the surface of the world, an unspoken covenant to hold the frequency of awareness. No one commands it. It simply exists, like the nervous system of awakening pulsing through humanity. The soul delights in this participation. It no longer measures progress by achievements, but by openness. Every morning becomes initiation. Every conversation, a lesson. Every act of love, a ceremony. You stop separating the sacred from the mundane because you finally see there was never a border. The infinite hides perfectly inside the ordinary. Time stretches. You begin to experience moments as layers rather than lines. The past feels reachable, the future pliable. Sometimes, in meditation or in the middle of laughter, you glimpse all versions of yourself coexisting: child, elder, wanderer, sage, each one watching the others with affection. The soul is a mosaic, and completion is not erasing the fragments, but seeing how they shine together. When the final chapter of this lifetime approaches, you will not fear it. You'll recognize it as a familiar threshold. You've crossed it many times. You may look back once more, not with regret, but with astonishment, at the precision of it all, the coincidences that weren't, the losses that gave birth to strength, the strangers who turned out to be old companions in disguise. You will smile, remembering that the contract was never about suffering, but about experience, about how vividly consciousness could express itself as you. As you release that last breath, you will feel a soft expansion, a return to the wider field, and perhaps you'll hear the whisper again, ready for another design? And somewhere beyond thought, you will say yes. But that moment isn't now. Now, in this world still turning, you stand as both participant and witness. The architecture continues to build itself through your choices. The more consciously you act, the more elegant the pattern becomes. You are the geometry learning to draw itself in real time. So live deliberately. Speak as if your words carve structure into air, because they do. Create beauty wherever you can. It strengthens the lattice for everyone. When you see fear, answer with understanding. When you see despair, become the proof that light persists. When you forget, return to silence and listen. The hum of the cosmos will always call you home. This is your call to action. Not to chase enlightenment, but to embody remembrance. Let every breath remind you that awareness is already here, waiting to be noticed. The more you honor it, the more the world begins to reflect it back through synchronicity, through love, through the quiet wonder of being alive. The story ends where it began, in the heartbeat of the universe, pulsing within you. And in that pulse, a new cycle begins, shimmering with possibility. The contract renews itself not as duty, but as freedom. You are the architect now. Choose well. Now that you've heard the story, pause. Take one breath deep, intentional, and remember. You are not bound by fate. You are the one writing it. Every choice from this moment forward shapes the next version of your reality. Choose awareness. Choose kindness. Choose to create instead of react. If this story stirred something inside you, that quiet recognition that you've been here before, then share it. Let others remember too. Because the moment one soul awakens, it sends a ripple through the entire field. The universe is listening, and it's waiting for your next choice.